Good evening, and thank you for being part of this very special virtual preview of the 2020 NGV Triennial. My name is Tony Elwood, and I'm the Director of the NGV. To begin, I acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which this event is taking place. I pay my respects to their elders, past and present, and the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander elders of other communities who may be here today. This Saturday, we'll reopen the doors of NGV International with the second NGV Triennial, and personally, I can't think of a better way to welcome you back. Featuring 86 projects by more than 100 artists and covering almost every inch of the gallery, I believe the Triennial is the perfect way to reinvigorate our passion for art and design. Incorporating architecture, painting, sculpture, fashion and photography, the show explores globally relevant and pressing issues of today, reflecting 4 themes: illumination, reflection, conservation and speculation. It will provoke thought, challenge perception, and provide moments of contemplation, discovery and hope. The Triennial is global in its representation, working with practitioners emerging through to established from around the world, and we have no fewer than 30 new works, commissioned exclusively by the NGV to be premiered right here. When we concluded the first Triennial 3 years ago, I couldn't imagine how we could match it again. But after seeing this exhibition come together, I'm confident that what we've achieved delivers new levels of ambition and excitement, and I can't wait to share it with you. Before we learn more, I welcome Janet Whiting, President of the NGV Council of Trustees, who will officially commence tonight's virtual event.
Thank you, Tony. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us tonight to celebrate the reopening of NGV International with this extraordinary exhibition. I'd like to acknowledge the Honourable Daniel Andrews, Premier of Victoria, Horst van Sanden, Managing Director and CEO of Mercedes-Benz Australia, and of course Tony Elwood, Director of the National Gallery of Victoria. I join with Tony in acknowledging our First Peoples, the elders of the Kulin Nation, and their past, present and emerging leaders. I'd also like to warmly acknowledge our many supporters, donors and corporate partners whose generosity and commitment to this project, especially during such a challenging year, has been both humbling and heartwarming. Without you, we wouldn't be here tonight. Your ongoing support is not only integral to the realisation of ambitious projects such as the NGV Triennial, but also for fostering and nurturing the creative vibrancy of Victoria. So I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge the incredible commitment by the Victorian Government to building the nation's largest gallery dedicated to art and design, the NGV Contemporary. Only recently announced it will have a transformative impact on our city, on our state, on the country and on the region. This purpose-built 21st century gallery, the largest of its kind in Australia, will form the central point of the transformed Melbourne Arts Precinct. It will attract millions of visitors each year and forever cement Melbourne as the cultural destination of major significance, not only for our corner of the globe, but the entire world. This landmark building will undoubtedly become a global beacon for tourism. NGV Contemporary will be an important and central part of our state's creative industries, and I commend the state government for their incredible leadership, extraordinary commitment and vision for the arts and creative sector. As we emerge from a difficult year of separation and begin to reconnect with one another in person, I'd really like to take this opportunity to reflect and acknowledge the incredible work of the NGV during the past year. Though physically closed, the NGV has truly remained open and accessible to all throughout a dedicated program of online and virtual experiences. While most galleries across the globe closed properly, the NGV closed its physical doors but remained open virtually throughout the time. Reaching more than 26 million and with more than 500,000 people taking a virtual exhibition tour during the period of closure, the success of the NGV's online offering has only shown to highlight the central role that art and design plays in people's lives, and especially during challenging times. It has buoyed many throughout this difficult period. Access to culture has been truly vital during the lockdown period, and I commend Tony Elwood and his extraordinary team for their dedication to maintaining public access to arts and culture throughout this time. Mercedes-Benz has been a generous supporter of our summer program since its inception and a valued partner of the NGV for more than a decade. We are incredibly grateful for their valued support and especially grateful for their unwavering commitment as principal partner of the NGV Triennial during what has been such a challenging year. It's my pleasure to now invite Horst van Sanden, Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer, to say a few words.
Thank you, Janet. It's a pleasure to be here. The NGV Triennial is an event of great significance, and as the principal partner, we feel relieved and blessed to be able to support the presentation of this exhibition. It is a positive way to end a year that has so challenged the arts and cultural community around the world. As many of you will be aware, Mercedes-Benz Australia has been a long-time supporter and principal partner of the National Gallery of Victoria's many landmark exhibitions. In fact, we have been aligned for 13 years in one of the longest-running sponsorships of its kind. As a company, we take great pleasure and pride in being associated with one of the world's great contemporary art institutions. Maintaining a vibrant and thriving art community is important to Mercedes-Benz. The synergies and touch points we find in art can inspire our own journey to design and develop the world's most advanced and luxurious vehicles. Just as crucially, our support for art and culture matters to our customers who tell us how much they appreciate beauty and inspiration and enjoy being stimulated and challenged. That is exactly what the first NGV Triennial gave us when it was held at the NGV in 2017. With such high caliber of artists and designers represented in 2020, we can only foresee the bar being lifted further. Knowing the incredible NGV team and their director Tony Elwood as well as we do, we can't wait to dive in and see what the NGV Triennial 2020 has in store for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Horst. The Triennial marks the last exhibition before Horst retires from his position as CEO of Mercedes-Benz Australia Pacific. So thank you very much for your outstanding contribution to this partnership. Shortly I'll welcome Daniel Andrews, Premier of Victoria, to say a few words. But first I also wish to thank the Victorian Government for their extraordinary commitment towards NGV Contemporary, a new cultural landmark for our state. This commitment demonstrates true leadership from the Victorian Government and will undoubtedly enrich the cultural life of Victoria. NGV Contemporary will become the largest home of contemporary art and design in our region, and the opportunity for collaboration, ambition and innovation is truly exciting. I commend the Victorian Government on their vision for the broader Melbourne Arts Precinct and the entire cultural sector of Victoria. We are also grateful to the Ian Potter Foundation, who have pledged $20 million towards NGV Contemporary, the single largest grant in the Foundation's history. And we look forward to working with everyone in our philanthropic community to make this landmark project happen. It's now my pleasure to invite Daniel Andrews, Premier of Victoria, to say a few words.
I'm thrilled to be here at the NGV to open the second ever Triennial. You'll remember the first Triennial's massive skulls and the apartment full of flowers. This year's exhibition truly lives up to that standard. I've just had a tour and let me tell you, it is spectacular. The NGV team have done an incredible job pulling together pieces from over 100 artists from over 30 countries. And of course, they've done it all in a very challenging year. After such a long, tough year, it's great we're able to get back to places like the NGV over summer, celebrating everything that makes our state the cultural, creative capital of our nation. As a government, we're proud to support the NGV and the Triennial. Every year, our creative industries bring millions of tourists to Victoria and billions of dollars to our economy. It's why investing in the arts is an investment in all Victorians. It's also why we're funding the construction of NGV Contemporary, creating thousands of new jobs in construction and creating a new gallery space which will host future exhibitions like the Triennial. But for now, you don't want to miss this exhibition. It runs from the 19th of December through to the 18th of April, so there's plenty of time to see all the work on display. Better yet, it's absolutely free. From towering sculptures to high-tech AI, there really is something for everyone. See you soon.
Thank you, Premier. An exhibition of this scale and complexity can only be achieved with the generosity of our community. For the 2020 Triennial, our supporters helped us raise more than $10 million towards the presentation and acquisition of the works and projects on display. This outstanding result was achieved through the dedication of over 100 donors, foundations and corporate partners. And when considering the unprecedented challenges faced by everyone in 2020, this commitment is even more extraordinary. I know many supporters are joining us tonight, so on behalf of everyone at the NGV, thank you. Without you, the Triennial wouldn't be possible. It's a pleasure to acknowledge everyone who got behind this project, and I appreciate this is a long list, but it is an honour to mention you by name. Starting with our Triennial champions, the Lottie and Victor Smorgon Fund, Lee and Sue Clifford, Barry Janes and Paul Cross, the Felton Bequest, John Higgins and Jodie Maunder, the NGV WA, Paula Fox and the Fox family, and Neville and Diana Bertali. I thank lead supporters, the Nelson Foundation, Joe White Bequest, Michael and Emily Tong, Gordon Moffat, and the All Off Family Charitable Trust. Our major supporters, the Bowness Family Foundation, Connie and Craig Kimberley, the Hugh Williamson Foundation, Andrew and Judy Rogers, Wendy and Paul Benici and family, Christina Campbell Pretty and family, Vicky Vidal and Peter Avery, Esther and David Frankel, the Bago Gerja Foundation, Andrew and Geraldine Buxton, Michael and Janet Buxton, Karen and Anthony Adair, Anne Ross, Lisa Fox, Viv and Graham Knowles, Katrina Knowles and Adam Karras, Chris and Cheryl Thomas, and the Trawalla Foundation. I thank Triennial supporters Nick and Helen Allen, the Korea Foundation, Janet Whiting, Phil Lukes and family, Tim and Gina Fairfax, Cam Oxley and Bronwyn Ross, David Parncott and the Robin Campbell Family Foundation, Betsy Polisek, Brendan and Grace O'Brien, Neil Young, Sarah Morgan, Andrew Cook, Brett Archer, Tanya and Sam Braun, Chris and Dawn Fleischner, Susan Jones and James McGrath, Suzanne Kirkman, Nick Perkins and Paul Banks, Tommy Hilfiger Australia, Michael Schwartz and David Calston, Beatrice Moynard, Gwyneth Head, Barbara Hay, Sean Kelly, John and Cecily Adams, Jan Berman, Peter Chew and Robert Morrow, Charles and Cornelia Good, Peter and Anne Greenham, the Grollo Razine Foundation, Jennifer Lempriere, Lisa Ring, Caroline Stubbs, and Sarah and Ted Watts. And finally, Triennial Circle donors, Nadia and Ed Sofa, Rob Gould, Len and Alana Warson, Robin and Ross Wilson, Syrup Art Collective, Douglas Baxter and Brian Hastings, Alex and Brady Scanlon, Emily Hardy, and the NGV America Friends, along with the vital funds of the AGL Shaw Bequest, Horton Bequest, and the Rogalski Foundation. Matching this is the outstanding generosity of the Victorian Government, the Department of Jobs, Precincts and Regions, and Simon Femister, Creative Victoria, and Andrew Abbott. Of course, our valued corporate partners have been instrumental too, and I warmly recognise Principal Partner Mercedes-Benz Australia Pacific and CEO Horst von Sanden. I thank our major partners, Chadston, Fiona McKenzie and the Gandel family, EY and Rodney Piltz, Telstra and Andrew Penn, and Macquarie Group and Tim Joyce. Our university partners, including RMIT and Professor Martin Bean, Deakin and Professor Ian Martin, La Trobe and Professor John Dewar, and the University of Melbourne and Professor Duncan Maskell. I thank the Packer family, Crown Resort Foundations, and Gretel and Ross Packer, as well as Cause, Chambers Westgarth, and Gavin McLaren. And I thank our supporters, Clemenger BBDO, City of Melbourne, MIMCO, NEC, Asahi, Dulux, and Yearing Station. And I acknowledge our media partners, QMS, Herald Sun, Broadsheet, the New York Times, Val Morgan Cinema Network, Smooth FM, Vogue Living, and 7am. And finally, I thank our tourism partner, Melbourne Airport. It is now my great pleasure to finally start tonight's virtual tour. Leading us are the curators who've spent the last 3 years, if not more, investigating the most exciting areas of contemporary art and design happening in the world today. The dedication, creativity and passion of the NGV staff towards this project has been humbling, and I hope you'll agree that through their outstanding commitment, we have set a new benchmark for our institution. So please sit back and enjoy the tour.
Glenda Nichols is a Wadi Wadi Ngarrindjeri and Yorta Yorta artist, and this is her work Miwi Maloo, Good Spirit of the Murray River. Nichols is a master weaver, constructing elaborate sculptural works that connect the present with the ancestral past. In Miwi Maloo, Glenda has woven her largest and most ambitious work to date, comprising thousands of hand-woven knots. This impressive net is adorned with hundreds of handmade feather flowers, crafted in collaboration with her daughter Melinda Andrew. Through this work, Nichols continues her narrative connecting women in fishing, emphasising the importance of Aboriginal women maintaining cultural practices and highlighting the plight of the Murray River system.
Working at the frontier of art and technology, Turkish new media artist and designer Rafik Anadol brings the future to the NGV Triennial, plunging us deep into the world of big data, quantum mechanics, algorithms and artificial intelligence to show us nature, but not as we know it. Anadol's Quantum Memories draws upon a data set of more than 200 million nature-related images from the internet, which are processed using quantum computing software developed by the Google AI Quantum Research Team in combination with a supercomputer that has been programmed with machine learning algorithms, turning the visual data that we have uploaded to the internet and which flows around us every day into an artwork that represents our collective memory of nature. The arresting visuals in Anadol's real-time video can be considered an alternative dimension of the natural world, and the artwork encourages us to imagine the potential of advanced computer technology and the immense opportunities it presents for the future of art, design and humanity.
Co-commissioned by the City of Melbourne and the NGV is a new work by renowned British artist Julian Opie. Australian Birds uses the recordings of 6 different birds and then drawn and rendered and animated in the artist's signature style, a style influenced by Egyptian hieroglyphs, classical portraiture and Japanese woodblock printing. These birds occupy 20 screens, LEDs, along the nature strip out the front of NGV International. And they go about their daily business unperturbed by the trams and traffic and passers-by, relaxed in their casual ownership of this island.
A collaboration between London-based designer Adam Nathaniel Furman and Melbourne's sibling architecture, Boudoir Babylon is a sensual celebration of people mixing in and meeting in space. This project transforms NGV's gallery kitchen by drawing inspiration from 3 spatial typologies: the boudoir, the salon and the club. Historically, these special spaces provided locations where identities such as women, queer and gender diverse, or having certain political or religious beliefs could exist and thrive. This new space creates an area of comfort and delight for every individual, including those that may not feel comfortable or entirely safe in the public realm. By combining the spatial strategies of the boudoir, the salon and the club, a new type emerges, the Boudoir Babylon.
I'm very excited to present Venus by acclaimed American artist Jeff Koons. Not only does this represent an important moment for the NGV, but in fact it's the first major work by Jeff Koons to enter the collection of any Australian museum. One of the most influential artists of his generation, Koons is recognised globally for his irresistible, oversized sculptures. His use of highly polished coloured stainless steel encourages the viewer to connect with the work through their own reflection. In this way, the viewer also becomes part of the experience too. The figure of Venus, the goddess of love, has been a recurring theme for Koons, and this particular depiction is based on an 18th century porcelain figure by Wilhelm Meyer. The project to acquire Venus has been many years in the making, working directly with Jeff and his studio. But it was a group of dedicated donors who really made this project happen. Through their outstanding vision, I feel confident Venus will become an iconic work in our collection.
Dutch-born, Los Angeles-based artist Lara Schnitger often uses materials and techniques traditionally associated with female labour. Commissioned for NGV Triennial, Schnitger's House of Heroines wraps around the gallery like an ancient Grecian frieze. Her drawings, etched into the 2-tone sequin fabric, recall ancient wall drawings and the political messages of street graffiti. The 4 columns of The Squad recall draped female sculptural pillars or caryatids of ancient temple architecture. They are abstract yet suggestive of sensual active bodies and contemporary expressions of women's voice, sexuality and agency.
The selection of artists you see here all use photography and portraiture in thought-provoking and expansive ways to reflect on the intersection of the traditional and contemporary culture, identity, beauty and sexuality. The photographs offer multiple perspectives on the human condition today, and celebrate the dynamism and beauty of life, while also questioning what it means to live in changing times where preconceived ideas of race, gender and representation, along with power, are increasingly challenged. Here you will encounter photographs by Ethiopian photographer Goma Berta, South African Phumzile Kanyile, Nigerian Lakin Uganbanwo, and Ugandan photographer Sarah Waiswa. Prominent among these works are the photographs of Ethiopian artist Ada Moulineh. Moulineh addresses the post-colonial experience in Africa and its ongoing ramifications as faced by communities across the continent and by the African diaspora globally. The African diaspora is further represented by Melbourne-based South Sudanese photographer Atong Atem. In her series, titled Studio, Atem draws on the history of studio photography in Africa and explores migrant stories from the African community in Australia. Prominent American photographer Ayana V. Jackson uses self-portrait and performance to create images that challenge ideas of race, colonialism and gender. She explores the complex relationship between Black American women in photography and the intertwining of the medium with colonial histories that saw the imposition of an ethnographic, racial and sexual gaze upon their bodies.
The practice of New York-based artist and poet Diamond Stingley examines systemic racial injustice in the US, as well as her personal experiences and childhood memories. Stingley grew up in Chicago in a family of athletes and playing a lot of sports herself. In this installation, consisting of over 700 athletic trophies, she reflects on our society's collective obsession with triumph, competition and failure. The poetic inscriptions on the trophies are fragments of conversations Stingley had with her grandmother and her older brother, who is a retired NFL player, as well as her own quotes and those from other artists and poets.
Dambit Mununga is a Yolngu artist who lives and works in Yirrkala in northeast Arnhem Land. Dambit spends her days painting at Bukulange Molka, the Indigenous-run art centre in Yirrkala. I'm standing in Dambit's installation, Can We All Have a Happy Life, made just for Triennial. The installation is made up of 15 bark paintings and 9 larakitch, or hollow poles. It's customary for artists who work at Buku, who paint country and the stories that it holds, to use material collected from country. So different ochres and found materials are worked into single sheets of bark to paint stories. A few years ago, Dambit was in a car accident which left her with a physical disability. The result of that was that she was given special permission to paint with store-bought acrylic paint, which she finds easier to manipulate. Because of this significant concession, Dambit has now become the first Yolngu artist working at Buku to paint with the colour blue. Each work in this installation charts Dambit's intimate knowledge of culture and of customary law. You can get a sense of who she is as a person, of her family and of place, thinking of them as a kind of Yolngu blueprint and a window into a different time.
German artist Alicia Quade's immersive installation may seem like a minimalist landscape of stone, steel, wooden elements and mirrors, but it's an experience that will mesmerise visitors. Within a steel hexagonal structure, this is a moment of masterful illusion, which will shift perception from every vantage point. As you move through, objects appear and transform in shape, size and material as if by magic, calling into question the wider environment around us. Exploring concepts of space, time, science and philosophy, Quade interrogates reality and reflects on the habits of everyday life. Porky Heffer is one of South Africa's most exciting creative practitioners, encompassing public sculpture, product and furniture design. Vibrant and playful, Porky's work also offers a powerful, thought-provoking message, which imagines a dystopian future for our planet and its inhabitants. For the Triennial, Porky introduces us to a group of imaginary sea creatures who have evolved through the rubbish and waste found in the world around them, such as plastics, cigarette butts and coffee cups. The friendly 14-metre octopus, aptly named Butt Puss, constructed out of hand-felted cigarette butts, will immediately command your attention. He's joined by other large-scale creatures whose colourful demeanour draws attention to the impact of consumerism and environmental neglect.
LA-based Australian architect Liam Young's Planet City provides a window into an alternative urban future that has been created as an antidote to the climate crisis. Planet City is simultaneously an extraordinary image of tomorrow and a provocative examination of the pertinent questions that face us today. The work considers what might happen if we radically reversed the sprawl of cities, instead housing the world's projected population in one super dense but workable city. Based on extensive research involving a global think tank of advisors and collaborators, Planet City shares what it could be like to house all humans and their attendant infrastructure and resources in a city for 10 billion, enabling the rest of the globe to heal as a vast wilderness.
Mexican artist Frida Toranzo Yeager uses imagery of cars to evoke the mythology of driving, from conquest and virility to industry and the fantasy of control. The shape of autofellatio recalls the folding polyptych paintings of Byzantine and medieval altarpieces as a way of exploring the role of religion in Mexico's colonial past. Images of car parts alongside organic and bodily forms draw associations between automation, gender and sexuality, and propose a speculative future where the dynamics of power are rearranged. The exaggerated size of the artist's signature parodies painting's traditionally male authorship and reclaims that space, in this instance, for a queer female voice. These works, from Claire Millige's series Sacks of Wind, A Rock Harder Than Rock, are made with the hinted glass marais technique, or reverse glass painting, a once popular folk art form, which is a recurring feature in her work. The series continue Millige's practice of exploring shamanic traditions, nature magic, mythology, environment, and invented prehistory. The series takes the song of Amagun from the Irish mythological cycle as its starting point. In the poem, Amagun, a druid and bard of the Milesian people, sang an incantation to defeat a magical storm. The title of each work includes a line from that incantation.
Korean photographer Kim Seon's ongoing photographic series, The Identification Photo Project, is an exploration of identity and contemporary culture. All of her portraits are taken in the familiar format of identity photographs. Kim is interested in the way this standardised approach can create a snapshot of current fashions and trends and create documents for posterity. She has described her work as recording and archiving with an inbuilt obsolescence, conscious that within 10 years' time, styles seen in these photographs will already be out of fashion.
Over the past 2 decades, Japanese artist Tomoaki Suzuki has employed a unique approach to creating his hand-carved limewood figures in a practice he describes as taking photographs through sculpture. Suzuki looks for potential models in the streets of his neighborhood in East London and identifies young people who have a distinct style and who use fashion to express their individuality. He takes around 3 months to create each of these figures, which are scaled at 1/3 of the model's size. Beginning with a piece of wood, he carefully carves the sculptures before painting them to capture the different textures and tones of clothing and skin. During this process, Suzuki usually spends many hours with the models in his studio. For the most recent work on display, Marisa, the model had to return home to Canada just before lockdown was imposed in the UK in March 2020. So he had to finish the sculpture working remotely, with Marisa posing in front of a computer.
Melbourne-based artist Scotty So undertook 2 major projects which responded to the global COVID-19 pandemic: social isolation and his encounters with racism during 2020. So's photographs reference an instructional video on how to wear a face mask correctly, and his ceramic works from the China Mask series take this ubiquitous disposable item and present it as a beautiful, if non-functional, art object. Be sure to come face to face with the challenging work of American photographer Bruce Gilden.
Delving into the mysterious and hyper-competitive world of real estate advertising and sales, Swiss and Finnish design collective BTVV present Walls for Sale, Near New and Supersized, a newly commissioned installation that invites reflection upon the elements that comprise the contemporary apartment dwelling. Through the use of exaggerated scale, the installation becomes an architectural collage of the worst practices of real estate photography, featuring manipulated interior perspectives and coveted appliances and material finishes. BTVV's installation is a satirical work of architecture that pokes serious fun at ubiquitous, low-quality property development, while also teasing our peculiar desire for white-on-white interiors.
Moja Moja means hairy in Japanese, and this installation for children and families is like an indoor playground featuring colourful hairy dogs, one of our favourite family pets and much loved by artist Masaki Kawai. Poofy, Moja, Raisin and Potato, along with Big Pink Fluffy Artie, create a spectacular group of pups for kids to play with. Children bring the dogs to life with their hops, skips and jumps on floor trigger mats that activate sounds and animation, transforming this gallery space into a dog park. Masaki Kawai also shares her lifelong interest in storytelling and puppetry and invites children to create their own puppet show video recording, starring themselves and her puppets made especially for this installation. Based on familiar experiences such as a visit to the hairdressers, the vet or a day at the beach, children voice their version of each tale and Masaki gives each puppet performance a twist with her animated drawings to surprise and delight all the young puppeteers.
Welcome to Natural History, an exciting installation by the LA-based art collective Fallen Fruit. These talented artists have created an immersive world of colourful wallpapers featuring beautifully painted images of flora and fauna that they saw during a recent visit here. The installation is thematic, in which they raise questions about the impact and relevance of various species brought to Australia, mainly from Europe. They also carefully placed works from the NGV collection, looking anew at their meaning. So natural history touches on issues of colonisation, the environment, mythology, religion and sexuality. So this is a provocative installation, but it's also a beautiful atmosphere in which to enjoy familiar and rarely seen works from the NGV collection, but do remember to look closely at their stunning wallpaper.
We're pleased to show work by the collaborative duo of Spanish photographer Cristina de Medel and Brazilian Bruno Moret. Their photographs explore the evolution of traditional West African religions as they have been practiced over centuries by the African diaspora in South America and in the Caribbean region.
Originally born in Korea, Liu Fan, renowned for his sculpture and painting, was the founder of one of the key avant-garde art movements post-war in Japan called Mono-ha. This new work, Dialogue, which has entered into the NGV collection, is an example of the movement asking us to consider not just the artwork as an object, but also the audience member and the space between the artwork and audience. Unusually for this artist late in his career, he's adopted this beautiful sensuous colour into his works. And this work is a contemplative one which echoes a single Zen-like brushstroke on an otherwise blank canvas, but in fact up close is made up of very fine lines and a careful crafting.
World-renowned Japanese architect Kengo Kuma has collaborated with Melbourne-based artist Jeffrey Neese to create the Botanical Pavilion, constructed entirely by interlocking pieces of wood. Inspired by traditional Japanese architecture, the pavilion interior is lined with timber collected from trees felled or removed from Melbourne's Royal Botanic Gardens. Some of these trees predate European colonisation, while others reflect the Botanical Gardens as a site of scientific research and classification. Taking over our temporary Asian gallery on level 1, the Botanical Pavilion becomes a contemplative space, in harmony with Liu Fan's peaceful yet determined painting Dialogue.
Samsara and Samsara branch ceiling light depict the life-size tree and separate canopy laden with iridescent blossoms. Both pieces have been handmade by Japanese designer and woodturner Mikiko Rien and Australian designer and metalworker Michael Gittings, who both live and work in Melbourne. Samsara draws on the delicate and transient beauty of the blossom to celebrate and draw attention to the cyclical nature of life.
Joy T. Arkand is a conceptual mixed media artist from the Muskeg Lake Cree Nation in Saskatchewan. Joy works in photo media, sculpture, neon, and is also a jewellery designer. The work behind me, Joy made specifically for the Triennial, and it translates from Cree language into the flow of life. Joy's work is all about taking Cree language, which people in Canada don't see in their daily lives all that often, and bringing it into a hyper-visible space so as people encounter it in their daily lives. Asenjak is an Inuk writer, curator and visual artist. Her film 3000 combines archival footage of Inuit culture with her own original animation.
British designer Stuart Haygarth repurposes commonplace objects to produce compelling lighting works and installations that take issue with the ways we ascribe value to manufactured goods. Optical Tinted by Haygarth is a large spherical chandelier created from more than 4,500 tinted prescription spectacle lenses recycled from optical frames. Illuminated from its core, the overall effect is a large, dazzling, crystal-like disco ball composed of elements designed to aid and focus human sight. Elevating the lenses to items of beauty, the work suggests that we look twice at humble and everyday objects. Dutch designer Sabine Marcellus works with light, glass and resin and is known for her distinctive object and lighting designs that challenge our perception of industrial materials to achieve exquisite aesthetic effects. Dawn 33 by Marcellus is a circular wall light cast in polyester resin. The neon light within energises the red and yellow hues of the material to evoke the rising sun at dawn and the aesthetics of this spectacular phenomenon. The work speaks to humanity's enduring preoccupation with making sense of light through the observation of everyday experiences. Presented in the company of NGV's collection of early 20th century design, light works by contemporary artists and designers celebrate the qualities of light and its enduring presence in art and design as a universal metaphor for a range of emotions and ideas. Netherlands-based studio River Rashan work at the intersection of art and design. Colour dial table Sunrise Light behaves like a projector or lens, creating the effect that time itself is rendered visible in the refracted colour cast on the floor through the table's interaction with light. Australian designer Dale Hardiman's Parts Chandelier is an assemblage made from discarded objects and industrial waste. Intentionally made to look rough in contrast to slick modernist design, the work is covered with grout and synthetic rubber in a comic-like effect to parody unsustainable design and manufacturing practices of the 20th century.
Tromarama is an art collective based in Bandung and Jakarta, Indonesia. Solararis is a glittering curtain of light, screening imagery inspired by the artist's visit to Kakaban Lake and their interest in hyperreality and interaction in art. As visitors watch, a program using video game software and live weather data from Kakaban affects the live feed footage. Temperature on the island informs population growth and size of jellyfish species, and wind speed alters the camera movement and direction, creating ever-changing landscapes.
In the 19th century, the annual exhibitions held at the Paris Salon and the Royal Academy in London were primary vehicles for the dissemination of visual culture to their respective audiences. In an age before cinema, these were incredibly important cultural events. The spectacle must have been enormous, the jostling crowds, the jostling pictures clamouring up the walls right to the roof. It must have been sensually just overwhelming. With this modern installation for the Triennale, we aim to recapture for contemporary audiences a sense of that excitement of literally being awash with information, each painting clamouring for attention, diverse narratives going on, the whole lot at first confusing, but with concentration, attention and patience, each individual story having its own song to sing. An amazing thing then, and we hope an amazing thing for audiences now.
It has been such a privilege to work in such an iconic room full of so many familiar paintings. Salon et Lumière is an expanded cinema experience comprised of 7 scenes. We needed to achieve variation in the scenes to create drama, different effects and spatial interpretations. all the while being sympathetic to each painting and theme. The NGV's passionate technical production team worked together to achieve full projection coverage of the walls. Our talented animators then mapped each frame within the room to create a simulation of the space, and then apply animation and visual effects wizardry. Award-winning screen composer and music producer Cornel Wilczek and his team's sound adaptation of the visuals really helped bring the experience to life by combining music, sound design, and spatial sonic effects which work in unison with the animation.
Cecilie Bendixen lives and works in Denmark. Her practice explores the sensory and emotive qualities of textile through spatial installations that seek to give form to the intangible, such as wind, space, or sound. The Cloud Formations collection is a new body of work commissioned for the NGV Triennial that examines the fluid and fleeting beauty of clouds. Bendixen asks us to reflect on how we perceive transience and offers an opportunity to delight in the space between material and the immaterial, so perfectly reflected in a cloud.
The work behind me is by US artist Jim Shaw. Renowned for his pop culture explorations, he's taken an existing theatre backdrop of the kind found in repertory theatre companies, in this case depicting the US Capitol building, and over the top painted a new image of an explosion, a mushroom cloud of visceral plasticity, and an array of 1950s household appliances, perhaps calling into question a relationship between consumerism and the American dream.
Recast from artist Tony Albert's vast collection of Aboriginalia, a term Albert uses to describe kitsch objects and images that feature portrayals of Aboriginal people and cultural materials, Nguma and Yabu are powerful lamps that interrogate contemporary legacies of colonisation. By naming the individual's father and mother in Girame, one of the artist's ancestral languages, Albert imbues these objects with black identities. In both lamps, glass acts as a medium that urges us to recognise that, like racism, it can be shattered. Dale Hardiman and Stephen Royce are Australian designers who collaborate on experimental lighting, design and interactive works that draw our attention to the closed system that prevents the adaptation, reconditioning and recycling of parts and technology in digital devices. Open Garden Digital Mirror is engineered from multiple LCD screens sourced from discarded smartphones and is programmed to reflect images of its viewer. Alluding to the concept of the selfie, the design speaks to the ever-expanding role of technology in shaping the way that individuals view themselves today. Melbourne-based architect and industrial designer Ilan Elves' Auralite Interactive Eclipse is a contemporary luminaire emitting coloured light. A large black disc, the automated light work moves through the visible light spectrum, appearing in a halo effect in recognition of coloured light's effect on human emotions and behaviour. Jonathan Bentoven's Ode to an Airbag is a kinetic standing lamp composed of automotive airbags that move through an endless cycle of inflating and decompressing to uncover a foreboding narrative about one of the world's most serious worldwide product recalls of the contemporary era. Daniel Brunsman is an Australian designer working with the functional and effective qualities of colour to shine light on its omnipresent role in shaping human experience. Brunsman's installation for the Triennial uses interior design strategies in dialogue with the NGV collection exhibition Spectrum, an exploration of colour, to deliver a new experience of the decorative arts corridor and its balconies. Realised in bands of coloured carpet and applied to the floors and balustrades, Brunsman's installation makes connections with the complexion of the NGV building and the collection artworks on display, incorporating her striking, chromatic, fantastic cabinet and wall light. British artist and designer Faye Toogood works across interior, furniture, sculpture, textile and object design. Her interdisciplinary practice is imbued with personal narrative and is formed through the belief that interior and functional design are enduring contexts for creative exploration. For the Triennial, Faye Toogood has reimagined NGV's 17th century galleries. Titled Downtime, she has curated and designed 3 magnificent spaces, using her own innovative designs for furniture, lighting, scenography, sculpture and large-scale tapestries, alongside her selection of 17th century artworks from the NGV collection. The 3 spaces are realised in responses to the themes daylight, candlelight and moonlight, and allude to the lighting effects present in the 17th century works. And they weave a compelling suite of narratives connecting the ideas and the creative achievements of artists and craftspeople from the past with the present day.
Angela Tiatia is an interdisciplinary Samoan-Australian artist based in Sydney. Angela Tiatia's Narcissus reimagines the Greco-Roman myth of Narcissus, of a beautiful young man falling in love with his own reflection through a contemporary lens. Her video work is a poignant and textured allegory of contemporary culture and its obsession with and worship of the self through social media. So we're thinking about the Greco-Roman myth of Narcissus in a very contemporary way.
Daniel Arsham is an American artist renowned for his sculpture, painting, interiors, and also his architecture practice, Snarchitecture. This work, Hidden Figures, uses a draped cloth fabric form to articulate figures that are found in a renowned painting in the NGV collection, Tiepolo's Banquet of Cleopatra. In this work, and also his work responding to Ranieri's Hero and Leandra, the artist is asking us to reconsider these icons of art history, and particularly in the case of Banquet of Cleopatra, to reconsider this figure, which here resembles the figure of Cleopatra. Mary Beard, the classicist, has made mention of the fact that race in the Roman Empire itself played no part in social status or citizenry, but in Tiepolo's 18th century version, Cleopatra, a woman of colour here, is rendered as a white Northern European woman, showing her status. So a politics of race is reintroduced where one didn't exist previously, and the artist is subtly drawing our attention to this. It stands in relation to another work in this room, a suspended chandelier form by Fred Wilson, a renowned contemporary artist working in America since the 1980s. Of African American background, Wilson's works also relate to race and ask us to reconsider our institutional context and collections through the light of this. This piece celebrates the presence of Africans in Venice and is made from Murano glass that is transparent and clear at the top, and as it comes down the chandelier becomes opaque and black at the bottom, and for the artist also symbolises the draining of spirit, life and blackness from his father's body as he died. There's another work in an adjoining room by Wilson called Met of the Muse. This work relates to his practice juxtaposing objects and images from different cultures to ask us to reconsider our relationship to them. There's an Egyptian form and also a Greco-Roman sculpture that in fact were found in garden supply shops and speak to our stereotypes of these cultures. He's remade these in bronze and placed them at a distance from one another in the gallery.
Quite possibly the centrepiece on Level 2's Floor of Light is Kereth Wyn Evans' installation, which uses the full height of the 18th century gallery. Kereth is a Welsh artist renowned for his large-scale neon sculptures, and here his work Coda unfolds as a drawing in light, suspended in space. Coda explores the legacy of no theatre, a form of classical Japanese performance dating back to the 14th century and still in practice today. The intricate and overlapping lines, loops, curves and geometric forms capture the drama and movement of the subject, culminating in an experience that is uniquely striking yet harmonious.
Karnofsky is a Milan-based art and design practice established by Francesco Ruggi and Silvia Quintanilla in 2007. Extinctions is an immersive light and wallpaper installation designed to highlight the ongoing ecological disaster of mass extinctions around the world. The movement created by the LED lights transitioning from red, green and blue reveal and conceal different groups of species classified from extinct to least concerned. This work reminds us that species survival and loss is dynamic, and that through awareness and action it is possible to reverse this devastating trend. Narcissission is a 43-minute looped video work by Indian artist Kiran Sabaya. It was made sporadically over 5 years and depicts the artist in various circumstances in his home. Death Again is a laser projection by British artist Matt Copson. It's inspired by Hans Holbein's 1533 painting, The Ambassadors, held at the National Gallery in London.
Megan Cope is a saltwater woman and Quandamooka artist whose work for the Triennial Unprecedented highlights the word precedent within the word unprecedented using glow mineral. In 2020, the word unprecedented has been used like never before. Cope draws attention to the fact that what is unprecedented to some actually is precedented to many Aboriginal communities.
Jamaican-born, Harlem-based artist Nari Ward uses everyday materials from the street. In this case, red shoelaces spell out the words, "This is a beautiful country," which were the last words of John Brown. John Brown was an abolitionist who was put to death after using violent means to fight against slavery in the United States. And this is a piece that asks us to consider that history, but also today's moment and the ideas of race and politics and representation. At either end of this corridor are works by Jan Gertzberger. Gertzberger is a French-born artist but based in Mexico City. He's particularly interested in the way that in the 20th century modernism adopted aesthetics from outside of the West, but also then how outside of the West it adopted modernism in its own way. And in particular these works are interesting in that they use the heads of mops dyed in supermarket dyes and then stuck onto a canvas to resemble tapestries.
Natasha Matilla-Smith is a New Zealand-born contemporary artist. I'm standing in her immersive, pink, glowing installation, If I Die, Please Delete My SoundCloud.
Japanese designer Tomo Kazumi presented his debut collection at New York Fashion Week in 2019. This work, Look 27 on the Runway, is characteristic of Koizumi's practice. Maximalist in scale, it employs over 200 metres of vibrantly coloured organza fabric. The material is first formed into dense ruffles before being machine stitched into the final form. Koizumi believes that working with a singular material encourages him to push himself creatively. The gown is Koizumi's version of a rainbow pride flag, and it's intended as a comment on inclusivity and the need to see and touch beauty in difficult times. London-based designer Richard Quinn is known for his exuberant floral prints and his exaggerated silhouettes. However, in February of this year, for his London Fashion Week collection, Quinn opened with a series of looks based on the embellished costumes of pearly kings and queens. Exploring notions of royalty, Englishness and subcultural style, this outfit cleverly reimagines British working class traditions through the lens of couture craftsmanship. Quinn's punk-inspired quip, "God Save the Quinn," which is embroidered around the lower edge of the skirt, is also a nod to the lineage of his own fashion house.
The components of Israeli designer Erez Nevi-Pana's crystalline, made in Israel's Dead Sea area, examines the metamorphosis of salt as a basic raw material into a deliberate, refined architectural composition. In this work of speculative architecture, crystal growth and natural ecological processes become an architectural material and a potential new way of approaching architectural practice. This work consists of distinct structural elements, footage from the site of the fabrication, a ladder, boulder, block and stepping stones. The work postulates that salt-based architecture could introduce new and more sustainable means for housing, tourism and public works. German designer Lucas Wegwerth repurposes existing ceramic vessels by transforming them into hosts for the growth of salt crystals. Submerging the vessels in a chemical solution, cracks and chips are slowly colonized by crystal formations over time. Through this process, Wegwerth references the 15th century Japanese art of fixing broken pottery called kitsuji, or golden repair. This set of 20 personal protective equipment, PPE masks, is designed by London-based Alice Potts for an imaginary post-COVID dance party. POTS highlights the dramatic global acceleration of single-use plastic waste due to COVID-19, including PPE and other medical apparatus such as syringes and swabs. Unlike commonly used petrochemical-based plastics, which are non-renewable and can create toxic pollution when disposed of, POTS's PPE masks are made of bioplastic, organic polymers that can safely biodegrade back into the environment after its useful life. Each bioplastic mask is made from food waste and dyed using flowers collected by the designer from her local parks and gardens in London during the COVID-19 lockdown. Kelp forests are one of the ocean's most biodiverse ecosystems. They are crucial for a healthy planet, but these ecosystems are out of balance. Rising ocean temperatures and excess nutrient levels, coupled with reduced numbers of predators, are causing an explosion in sea urchin populations. Combining her skills as a designer, researcher and scuba diving instructor, Melbourne-based Dr. Pirjo Hakala is developing a use for sea urchins as a new material that is currently being tested for coral reef restoration. The accompanying film shows footage of Hakala collecting urchins for the project in Melbourne's Port Phillip Bay and the Mornington Peninsula, where an ecological crisis caused by urchins is silently unfolding today. Dubai-based designer Talin Hasbar's Accretions offers an example of how designers can co-create materials and design objects working with existing natural forces and chemistry. The intricate ornamentation of these lightworks have been formed through each of the handmade stainless steel mesh sheets being repeatedly submerged in the waters off the coast of Dubai. Over many months, the mesh is transformed as its surface hosts the growth of mollusks, crustaceans, calcified algae and corals. Hasbar's works are designed to better understand how we can reduce reliance on fossil fuels and instead draw on the energy and nutrients freely available from the sun and the seas. Continuing this theme of collaboration with nature, Canberra-based Elliot Bastianen decorates furniture with crystals of copper sulfate, while Munich-based Nama Bergman encrusts her jewellery with salt. And New York-based Bosco Sodi impregnates historical prints with mould to complete the work.
Vicky West is a senior Trulaway artist based in northeastern Tasmania near Launceston. Vicky West's reflection comprises a series of 9 bull kelp vessels. Their feminine forms create a matriarchal ode to the 9 traditional pre-invasion nations of Tasmania. Reflection also draws attention to today's disrespect for the natural environment and subsequent endangerment of natural resources.
Hannah Bronte is a practicing visual artist whose music videos, banners and large-scale installations explore the role of Indigenous women through recurring themes of resilience, matriarchy and power. Influenced by her work as a DJ and her fascination with the sung and spoken word, Bronte is conscious of intertwining the knowledge of her ancestors within each work she creates. Bronte has recently drawn on holistic, spiritual and physical healers as consultants for her work, which has led to her becoming a doula. She's also been unpacking intergenerational spiritual knowledge, which marks the beginning of a new direction within her practice. Bronte's immersive video installation I Hear You Magic explores how ancestral intuition has been passed down through Indigenous women in the wake of colonisation. Stephen Rahl is a Taungurung conceptual artist who lives and works in Melbourne. His work for NGV Triennial, Air Dancer as Black Body, involves an inflatable air dancer which activates and shoots up in a dark room.
Adrian Piper is a first-generation conceptual artist and analytic philosopher. Her participatory work, The Humming Room, is made up of an empty room guarded by a security officer and a joyous but perplexing instruction for creative interaction. In order to enter the room, you must hum a tune. Any tune will do. Contemporary artist and jeweller David Bielander's neck pieces are hand-carved in European and Australian timbers and reference the nose of the wooden marionette Pinocchio. These skin heel boots by Canadian fashion designers Fecal Matter form part of an ongoing project to question what it means to be human by way of photography, hair, makeup, clothing and prosthetics. This watercolor on rice paper by Indian artist C.G. Krishnan is part of a group of works dedicated to her family, in which she foregrounds the interdependence of life and community. The work of Berlin-based Scottish artist Susan Phillips explores the psychological and sculptural dimensions of sound. This installation is inspired by Swedish writer Harry Martinson's 1956 epic poem Aniara, a sci-fi tragedy following the fate of a group of would-be colonists on a spaceship that flees ecological destruction on Earth to start a new life on Mars, but is doomed to drift endlessly in space after it strays off course.
In this space, you'll find a number of works that consider the human condition. Melbourne artist Yanni Florence invites us to observe the self-contained commuters moving through our city, and these images by French photographer Veronique Eleanor are eloquent reminders of the human cost of the familiar, yet often overlooked presence of the homeless on our streets. Chinese photographer Li Shiwan speculates on the way in which we view and consume images at an extraordinary pace through the use of technology, and Iranian artist Soheila Sokanari references faded family snapshots in her drawings made using crude oil.
UK artist Des Lawrence is renowned for using newspaper clippings of famous people's obituaries in the creation of his works. These three works of three TV and film sirens created using coloured pencil on paper are indicative of his early work, whereas this work here, the largest in the exhibition, is dedicated to the life of Henry Wolseley, who was an Arctic explorer who died attempting to traverse Antarctica on foot and alone. This monumental work kind of captures his essence, and by choosing the newspaper obituary, the artist is really taking out of the equation the creative anxiety of trying to work out what to make next. Adelaide-based artist Pierre Makeba was born in the Democratic Republic of Congo, came to Australia as a refugee. His works try to embody and capture his community of people here in Australia and overseas, and in this work it's emblematic of his approach. He uses this batik fabric as a symbol of kind of colonialisation, as well as the aesthetic of his home country. Batik was appropriated by Dutch colonisers when they were in Indonesia and taken to the continent of Africa. So this work is a mixed media work that uses texture, these found fabrics, and also stitching to articulate these community members. Turkish artist Guido Casaretto uses traditional sculpting techniques to call into question the ways in which we make sculpture today. These cast works are actually made using a digital subject, through a 3D model of a man called David, that the artist has then used as a life model in a way to sculpt clay, cast that clay in resin, and then use charcoal to draw in these features. His works call into question for an audience member what is a real, what is a copy, what is original, and in a way they mimic the computer programs used to simulate reality.
New York-based American artist Tabor Roback uses digital animation to create highly detailed moving image. For the NGV Triennial, Roback was commissioned to make a new installation work. Megafauna encompasses a whole gallery and surrounds us with Roback's elaborate animated images. On the walls are the Magi, enormous life forms, part machine, part organism, that evoke the technologies that artificial intelligence is most likely to emerge from, including geoimaging and cartography, military science and weaponization, high-frequency trading, and healthcare. Glowing and cavernous, Megafauna feels at once like a sacred space and a sci-fi dystopia. It reflects the mythology and deity-like importance we place on AI in our contemporary society. The installation, digital, organic, imagined and real, evokes the concurrent risks and benefits of advanced technology. Roback invites reflection on the ethical and philosophical implications of our relationship to technology.
Recycled Woolen Island is Patricia Orquiola's first major installation to feature in Australia, activating the Great Hall with a playful array of supersized socks. The Spanish designer was fascinated by the popular pastime of NGV visitors lying on the floor of the Great Hall to enjoy the iconic Leonard French ceiling, so she wanted to make the experience more comfortable. Using this commonplace item, something often left on the floor, the installation creates a humorous yet purposeful place to sit and relax. Created with recycled wool felt and upcycled PET plastics, Urquiola often injects humour into her work while maintaining a sense of tactility and function. The NGV has commissioned New York-based sculptor Tony Metelli to create a bronze rendition of the Greek goddess Hera. At first glance, this larger-than-life sculpture appears in its traditional Greco-Roman marble form, yet upon further inspection the disrepair starts to appear. Juxtaposed with vibrant watermelons perfectly balanced on her head, drapery and at her feet, the connection between the goddess and the fruit is seemingly absurd. Renowned for his uncanny objects, Metelli plays with the ideas of preservation and decay with an almost comic effect. French artist JR is practically a household name. Many will recall his takeover of the Louvre's facade and forecourt, which caused an instant social media frenzy. Often his work is best viewed from remote vantage points, yet it encourages an encounter with passers-by. For the Triennial, JR chose a truly Australian story, focusing on the ecological decline of the Darling River region. With an interest in the plight of farmers balanced with the need to preserve Indigenous lands, JR's ambitious work Homily to Country shares the stories of people from the area. The commission is presented as an open-air chapel with stained glass windows featuring striking depictions from the artist's research trip to the region in early 2020. We are proud to be the first cultural institution in Australia to present the work of JR as part of this world premiere. You've just seen every artist, designer, project, acquisition and commission featured in the 2020 NGV Triennial. Congratulations for staying with us. All of this has been captured in the exhibition catalogue, undoubtedly our largest and most comprehensive publication produced to date, featuring over 50 writers and contributors from around the world. The catalogue is divided into 5 unique volumes and weighing in at 5 kilograms, I feel confident to say we have your holiday reading sorted. And if you're like me and have left your Christmas shopping to the last minute, I recommend you explore the outstanding range on offer in our design store, including limited edition pieces developed in collaboration with a number of Triennial artists. With its significant size and scale and as a completely free exhibition, the Triennial is an experience which I encourage you, your family and your friends to return to over the summer. And there is a lot to look forward to over the coming months, including the Triennial Extra Festival, a season of late nights with live music, performance, dining and entertainment running over 4 weeks from the 15th of January. Also in January is the NGV Kids Festival during the school holidays with in-person and online activities for children and their families to enjoy. From February, our school support program will continue as an exciting and engaging virtual experience for students and teachers right across our state. And in March, the very popular Melbourne Design Week will return, as well as the Melbourne Art Book Fair, continuing to play a vital role within our vibrant design and publishing community. But until then, I wish you and your family a safe and happy festive season. And on behalf of everyone at the NGV, we can't wait to share the Triennial with you. Thank you and good night.